Soul's cyclic return, karma's hidden cycle. What if I told you that you've lived dozens, perhaps hundreds of lives before this one, and that you'll likely live many more after? Not as a punishment, not as a reward, but because there's something you haven't yet remembered. Somewhere deep within your soul, there's a sacred Kodia divine memory, buried beneath lifetimes of emotion, identity, and illusion. And until it awakens, you will continue to return, again and again, in a cycle older than time itself. Reincarnation isn't a fairy tale or a spiritual fantasy, it is a cosmic mechanism of refinement. A spiral staircase upon which the soul climbs, not just to evolve, but to remember its origin. And every incarnation is a lesson. Every joy, every heartbreak, every chance encounter woven into a grand curriculum of consciousness. But what if the cycle isn't always kind? What if many souls are caught in a loop, repeating the same patterns across lifetimes? What if karma, as we've been taught, is only half the story? In this video, we'll explore the real reason souls reincarnate, not just the poetic idea, but the deep esoteric understanding hidden in ancient teachings. We'll look at the laws that govern the cycle of birth and death, the unseen forces that pull the soul back into matter, and the secret to finally stepping off the wheel when you are ready. You'll discover why your current life holds clues to your past, why certain relationships feel inexplicably familiar, and how your inner struggles might echo across centuries. This is not just a story of return, it's a call to wake up. Because once you understand the hidden architecture of reincarnation, you no longer drift through life, you walk it with purpose. Are you ready to remember what you came here to do? The idea that we live more than once is not new, it is ancient, pervasive, and deeply embedded in the spiritual philosophies of nearly every continent. Long before modern science reduced consciousness to neurons and synapses, sages and mystics across the world understood the soul as something eternal, something that transcends the body and journeys through time like a traveler through vast and varied landscapes. In India, the doctrine of samsarath wheel of birth, death, and rebirth has shaped Hindu, Buddhist, and Jain teachings for thousands of years. The Bhagavad Gita tells us, "As a man casts off worn-out garments and puts on others that are new, so the embodied self casts off worn-out bodies and enters into others that are new." Here, life is not linear. It's cyclical, governed by karma, dharma, and the soul's unfolding quest for liberation, or moksha. The Tibetan Book of the Dead, or Bardo Thodol, goes even further. It describes in vivid detail the journey of consciousness after death, the passage through intermediate realms, the illusions one must see through, and the opportunities to either reincarnate or break free. Tibetan monks train their minds not only for meditation, but for death itself, knowing that clarity in the bardo determines the trajectory of the next incarnation. Meanwhile, the ancient Egyptians believed that the soul, or Ba, returned again and again, weighed in each lifetime against the feather of Ma'at, the principle of truth and cosmic balance. Their elaborate rituals of mummification and afterlife preparation weren't just cultural, they were practical metaphysics, designed to assist the soul in its return and eventual ascension to the divine realms. Even in the mystery schools of the West, reincarnation was a core tenet. The Pythagoreans believed in metempsychosis, the transmigration of the soul. Plato taught that the soul chooses each life for the lessons it needs. The Gnostics spoke of the soul's descent through layers of density, forgetting its divine origin, until through gnosis inner knowing it remembers and returns. These teachings, though cloaked in different languages and symbols, all point to a unifying truth. that reincarnation is not random. It is initiatory. It is the soul's curriculum through the temple of time. But alongside this spiritual understanding, there exists a warning gone echoed in many traditions. The cycle of reincarnation can become a trap, a labyrinth of forgetfulness where the soul loses itself in identity, desire, and suffering. The Buddhists call it dukkhathi, suffering that arises from attachment. The Hindus speak of mayathi, grand illusion. Esoteric teachings from both East and West suggest that unless the soul becomes conscious of the cycle, it may wander in circles for lifetimes, not out of punishment, but out of unawareness. It returns not because it must, but because it has not yet remembered how not to. And that is where true liberation begins, not with escaping the world, but with seeing it clearly. When the soul begins to awaken to its own eternal nature, the wheel begins to slow. Reincarnation is no longer fated, becomes a choice. In the next section, we'll explore exactly how this cycle works, what causes the soul to reincarnate, how karma and memory shape the next life, and why some souls seem to evolve quickly, while others repeat the same patterns for centuries. To understand why souls keep reincarnating, we must first understand the mechanism of return, not through myth, but through the architecture of consciousness. Imagine the soul as a radiant orb of light, limitless, eternal, and formless. Yet, in order to evolve, it chooses to descend into form, to take on limitation, to forget what it is, so that it can remember again. Why? Because consciousness evolves through experience, and experience requires contrast, light and shadow, pain and joy, ignorance and realization. When the soul incarnates, it enters what some traditions call the lower world stensified planes, where matter is thick and memory is thin. This is not a punishment, it is a sacred descent. Like a pearl forming in an oyster, the soul develops depth and luster through the friction of duality. But with this descent comes forgetfulness. At birth, most souls forget their origins, their past lives, their purpose. This forgetfulness is not a flaw, it is part of the design. The veil of amnesia allows each life to be approached as new. Yet beneath the surface, the echoes of previous lives ripple in every thought, every fear, every unexplained attraction or aversion. So what determines the next incarnation? Enter karma, a word often misunderstood. Karma is not divine punishment. It is energetic inertia. Every action, thought, and intention generates a frequency. That frequency ripples out into the field of consciousness and eventually returns not as reward or punishment, but as an opportunity for balance. If you cause suffering, you may return in a lifetime where you experience what you once inflicted, not to suffer, but to understand. If you live a life of wisdom and love, you may return in a more elevated form, not to be rewarded, but to teach. Karma, then, is the curriculum of the soul. Each life writes a page, but some lessons are left unfinished, some wounds unhealed, some attachments unbroken. These create energetic impressions called samskaras in Sanskrit that magnetize the soul back into form to continue the work. These impressions do not only shape where you reincarnate, but how. They determine the family you're born into, the challenges you face, the gifts you carry, the relationships you magnetize, especially the ones that feel inexplicably powerful or painful. This is why you may meet someone and feel you've known them forever, or why you carry an unexplainable fear of water, fire, or abandonment. These are not random, they are residue from past lives, still seeking resolution, but karma is only one half of the equation. The other is desire. In many esoteric teachings, Desire is what pulls the soul back. Not only desire for pleasure, but also for resolution, for expression, for redemption. Even noble desires like the desire to help, to create, or to love can draw the soul back into incarnation. This is why many enlightened beings choose to reincarnate not out of karma, but out of compassion. Thus, the soul returns again and again, sometimes asleep, sometimes waking. Each time more complex, more refined, more aware. But for many souls, something happens. They get caught. They repeat the same mistakes. They fall into the same relationships. They chase the same illusions. They don't remember who they are or why they came. And so the wheel turns. Not because it must, but because the soul has not yet realized it has the power to stop spinning. In the next section, we'll explore the second half of this mystery. How exactly the soul gets stuck in the cycle, the hidden forces that influence reincarnation beyond karma, and the esoteric keys to stepping off the wheel for good. Karma bends. Illusion holds fast. You see, most souls do not remember that they are eternal. They become entangled in the roles they play. Mother, warrior, lover, victim, hero. These identities are like garments worn across lifetimes, convincing, familiar, even sacred, but ultimately, they are temporary costumes in a cosmic play. And when the play ends, most souls still clinging to the storyline return to the stage, driven by unfinished scenes, unresolved emotions, or a deep unconscious need to continue the drama. This is why certain souls seem to live the same life again and again, just in different costumes, countries, or timelines. The details change, but the patterns repeat. But there's more. Beyond karma and desire, ancient esoteric teachings speak of energetic interference forces in the unseen world that may influence reincarnation in more subtle ways. The Tibetan Book of the Dead warns that in the bardo, the in-between state after death, the soul is vulnerable. If unprepared, it can be easily swayed by visions, fears, or false lights, leading it into another incarnation before it even realizes what's happening. Gnostic texts echo this. They describe archonsubtle beings of the lower astral realms who keep souls bound to the material world through deception and confusion. These forces are not evil in the Hollywood sense, but they are part of the architecture of density, and they feed on the soul's forgetfulness. In this view, reincarnation is not just a divine journey of learning it, can also become a trap of amnesia, especially for those who never awaken during their lifetimes. That's why the ancients placed such emphasis on awakening while still alive, because death is not a guaranteed moment of clarity. So how does one escape the cycle? Not through force, not through fear, but through remembrance. To step off the wheel of reincarnation, the soul must resolve karma, not just by paying debts, but by transforming its inner reaction to suffering and attachment. Release identity, recognizing that all roles are temporary masks on the face of eternity. Awaken conscious memory through spiritual practice, self-inquiry, and connection to higher states of being. Anchor awareness in the eternal self, the witness behind all lifetimes, the flame that does not flicker. This is what the yogis call moksha, what the Buddhists call nirvana, what the Gnostics sought through gnosis. And here's the mystery. You don't need to die to begin this process. You can begin it now. Every moment of mindfulness dissolves a layer of illusion. Every act of compassion balances the ledger. Every time you see through an emotional pattern instead of reacting to it, you release another thread tying you to the wheel. This is how the soul begins to evolve, not just through time, but beyond it. It doesn't mean you will never incarnate again. It means that if you do, it will be by choice, not by compulsion. You become a traveler, not a prisoner. A conscious spark, returning not out of need, but out of love. In the next section, we'll explore how to apply this knowledge in daily life with specific practices, reflections, and techniques that can help you resolve karmic patterns, awaken memory, and live in greater alignment with your soul's true nature. Understanding the reincarnation cycle is powerful, but unless it transforms how you live right now, it remains just a mystical idea. The real purpose of this knowledge is not to escape life, but to live it consciously, so that whether you return again or not, you do so from a place of awareness, not compulsion. Here are several practical steps and techniques you can begin today to resolve karma, awaken remembrance, and live as a soul, not just a personality. 1. Identify and dissolve karmic patterns. Karma often hides in patterns, especially the ones that repeat emotionally or relationally. These loops are signals from the soul, saying, "There is something here you haven't yet seen through." Practice. Reflect on areas of your life that feel cyclic, repeated types of relationships, emotional triggers, financial struggles, or persistent fears. Ask, what is this trying to teach me? What belief or reaction do I keep repeating? Instead of reacting the same way, pause. Choose a new response. Even a small shift begins to break the energetic loop. This is karma resolution through conscious transformation, not passive endurance. 2. Cultivate soul memory. Through stillness, reincarnation hides the soul's memory behind the noise of daily thought. But with regular stillness, those deeper layers begin to surface. Practice. Sit in meditation for 10-20 minutes daily. Breathe slowly and deeply. Ask silently, what have I forgotten? What is seeking to be remembered? Let images, emotions, or symbols rise. Don't chase them, just observe. Keep a journal. Over time, fragments of past life memory, soul themes, or inner archetypes will begin to emerge. Your intuition is your thread back through lifetimes. 3. Release attachments to identity. Every lifetime is a role, and roles come with attachments. The more tightly you cling to a role victim, savior, rebel, martyr, the more likely you are to repeat the script. Practice. Begin noticing the roles you play in your life. Are you over-identified with your profession, your wounds, your family role? Practice saying to yourself, I am not this role. I am the awareness behind it. In moments of intense emotion, shift your focus to the witness within. That witness is your timeless self, the part of you that does not reincarnate, but observes each life. This is the beginning of ego transcendence, the true key to liberation. 4. Act with clear intent and compassion. Karma is shaped not just by action, but by intention. When you move through life with clear purpose and love, you generate liberating karma actions that uplift rather than entangle. Practice. Before any major decision or interaction, ask, is this coming from fear, ego, or love? Choose the response that brings more harmony, understanding, or truth. Every time you consciously choose love over reaction, you shift your soul's trajectory. This is how even mundane choices become spiritual refinement. 5. Embrace life as sacred training. Remember, this life is not a test. It is a training ground for awareness. Every situation, no matter how painful or confusing, is part of the soul's curriculum. A mindset shift. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Ask, what am I being shown? What aspect of myself is this reflecting? Recognize every experience as a mirror for growth, and you'll stop reacting from the small self and begin responding from the soul. The power of conscious reincarnation. When you live with this awareness, you begin to prepare not just for this life, but for the next, if you choose to return. You create continuity of consciousness, threads of soul memory that persist beyond death. And should you reach the point of release, where no karma binds you and no desire pulls you back, you may still return, not to learn, but to serve. Not to seek, but to guide. This is the path of the Bodhisattva, the soul who is free, but chooses to walk with those still waking. In the next and final section, we'll reflect on the deeper meaning of this journey, why it matters, and how your awareness today can ripple across lifetimes to come. You are not a body that happens to have a soul. You are a soul eternal, radiant, and wise, temporarily wearing a body to learn, to grow, and to remember. Reincarnation is not a cosmic punishment or a mystical method. Is the soul's journey through time, shaped by choice, intention, and forgetfulness. You return again and again, not because you are broken, but because you are being forged. Each life is a crucible, refining your light through shadow, your truth through illusion, your wisdom through experience. But now, you've begun to remember. And with remembrance comes power, the power to observe your patterns instead of being trapped in them, to respond with awareness instead of reaction, to live this life as a conscious soul rather than a sleepwalking personality. The cycle of rebirth doesn't end when you die. It ends when you stop clinging, when you release the illusion of identity, when your actions arise from love, not fear. When you live not for yourself, but as a living expression of the greater whole. This is how the wheel slows. This is how the soul awakens. And this is how freedom begins, not in death, but in this moment, right now, as you choose to live with presence, purpose, and soul. So ask yourself, what have I returned to remember? And what would it mean to finally remember it? If this message stirred something ancient within you, something deep and familiar, you're not alone. Subscribe and join this journey of remembrance, reflection, and inner mastery. Because the path doesn't begin in the next life, it begins now.